Welcome to the second part of Richard Henry Dana Jr.'s chapter on the able seaman. The text from which I shall be reading is The Seaman's Friend, a treatise on practical seamanship, first published in 1841. In allotting the jobs among the crew, reference is always had to a man's rate and capacity, and it is considered a decided imputation upon a man to put him upon inferior work. The most difficult jobs and those requiring the neatest work will be given to older and more experienced of the seamen, and of this none will complain. But to single out a seaman and keep him at turning the spun yarn winch, knotting yarns, or picking oakum while there are boys on board and other proper seaman's work going forward at the same time would be looked upon as punishment, unless it were temporary, or from necessity, or while other seamen were employed in the same manner. Also, in consideration of the superior grade of the able seaman, he is not required to sweep down the decks at night, slush the masts, etc., if there are boys on board and at hand. Not that a seaman is not obliged to do these things. There is no question but that he is, just as much as to do any other of the ship's work. And if there are no boys on board or at hand at the time, or from any other cause it is reasonably required of him, no good seaman would object, and it would be a refusal of duty to do so. Yet, if an officer were deliberately and without necessity for it, when there were boys about the deck at the time who could do the work as well, to order an able seaman to leave his work and sweep down the decks or slush a mast, it would be considered as punishment. In working ship, the able seamen are stationed variously, though for the most part upon the forecastle, at the main tack or fore, and main, lower, and topsail braces, the light hands being placed at the crojack, and the fore and main to'gansel and royal braces. In taking in and making sail, and in all things connected with the working of a ship, there is no duty which may not be required of an able seaman. Yet there are certain things requiring more skill or strength, to which he is always put, and others which are invariably assigned to ordinary seamen and boys. In reefing, the men go out to the yard arms, and the light hands stand in toward the slings, while in furling, the bunt and quarters belong to the able seaman, and the yard arms to the boys. The light hands are expected to loose and furl the light sails as royals, flying jibs, and mizzen to'gansels, and the men seldom go above the cross trees except to work upon the rigging or to send a mast or yard up or down. The fore and main to'gansels, and sometimes the flying jibs of larger vessels, require one or more able seamen for furling, but are loosed by light hands. In short, as to everything connected with the working of the ship, making and taking in sail, etc., one general rule may be laid down. A seaman is obliged to obey the order of the master or officer, asking no questions and making no objection, whether the duty to which he is ordered is that which properly belongs to an able seaman or not. Yet as able seamen alone can do the more nice and difficult work, the light hands in their turn are expected to do that which requires less skill and strength. In the watch on deck at night, for instance, the able and ordinary seamen steer the ship, and are depended upon in case of any accident, or if heavy sails are to be taken in or set, or ropes to be knotted or spliced. And in consideration of this, if there is light work to be done, as coiling up rigging about the decks, holding the log reel, loosing or furling a light sail or the like, the boys are expected to do it, and should properly be called upon by the officer, unless for some circumstance it should be necessary to call upon a man. Yet as I have said before, if ordered, the seaman must do the thing under any circumstances, and a refusal would be a refusal of his duty. No man is entitled to the rate and wages of the able seaman who is not a good helmsman. There is always a difference in a ship's company as to this duty, some men being more steady, careful, and expert helmsmen than others, and the best quality cannot be required of every able seaman. Yet if, upon fair trial in bad weather, a man is found incapable of steering the ship under circumstances not extraordinary, he would be considered by all on board to have failed of his duty. It should be remembered, however, that there are times when even the very best helmsman is hardly able to steer a ship, and if a vessel is out of trim or slow in her motions, no skill can keep her close to her course. An able seaman is also expected to do all the work necessary for reefing, furling, and setting sail, to be able to take in a bunt or earing, to send yards or masts up or down, to rig in or out a boom, and to know how to reeve all the running rigging of a ship, as well as to steer or pull an oar in a small boat. The standard of seamanship, however, is not so high in coasting vessels, and those of a smaller class bound upon short voyages, in which all the work that is necessary upon the vessel or rigging is usually done when in port by people hired from the shore. In such vessels, many men ship for able seamen and are considered, upon the whole, competent, if they are able-bodied and can hand, reef, and steer, who perhaps would only have shipped for ordinary seamen in vessels bound upon longer voyages. In all large-class vessels, and in vessels of almost any class bound upon long voyages, the standard of seamanship is very nearly what I have before described. And so concludes Richard Henry Dana Jr.'s chapter on the able seaman, as noble a profession as ever there was. I hope this will give you a better idea of what is expected of one who writes able next to his name when signing the ship's book before going to sea. But now I fear I must depart myself. The wind is up, and I shall be wanted aloft.